systemic investigation on the series of incidents involving Robert and John on the Metro. Clearly there's some series of behaviours or errors, if you like, from both the crew. So we've got Robert coming to work with a level of fatigue, and then he misses the information on the NOTAMs, doesn't really get well prepared for the flights, and the captain doesn't help out here either. There's really no cooperation or coordination going on by the two crew.
Come on, we've got to go. Like now? This is madness. We could have diverted around this. I thought you got the NOTAMs. I did. It's too friggin' late for that. Keep your eyes open.
The decision-making processes of the crew need to focus on what's ahead of the aircraft and not what's historically occurred.
What the hell is going on in your head?
I'm sorry,
It's just not good enough. This is your incident. You deal with it.
He needs to be assertive, but certainly not moving into the aggressive area where put downs to the first officer would occur and potentially result in the withdrawal of the first officer in a support role.
It's all about communication in the cockpit. It's all about understanding that some days someone's going to be fitter for flight than others, and the two working together as a team.
Of course, on the next flight then we see some further issues with Robert, with some fatigue again, some tension at home perhaps, and also a migraine and the onset of some flu symptoms.
Splitting headache and a cold. I mean, where are the pills?
Top cupboard.
The strong ones?
Self-medication's a bad thing. You need to be talking to an appropriately aviation medicine qualified doctor.
Another recipe for disaster is mixing your medications. A lot of medications cross-react and lead to some pretty adverse effects. If someone's got a bad cold, they're more likely to have blocked eustachian tubes, so they may have ear trouble with flying. Potentially their sinuses might have trouble when they're flying. And also there's a distraction of pain and just feeling under the weather, generally fatigued. Certain people get unique reactions to medication. Medications can interact with fatigue and they can cause a synergistic decrement in performance.
His state of health, the headache, the self-medication. The first obvious sign was probably the incident with driving to the aircraft, that he probably was not in a good state. If you're getting fatigued, you've got a lot of pressure typically that's going to drive you down the path of trying to pay off loans, of making sufficient money and getting hours up. You're probably not the best person to make a decision about when you're starting to push yourself a little bit too hard.
It's also important that the captain has a very clear understanding that they hold the ultimate responsibility for the safety and the conduct of the flight. Clearly in this scene, the captain had literally delegated that task with no oversight to the first officer.
Look at it as a learning experience.
The authority grading on this flight is too steep. You've got a captain that's not overly supportive, that's showing signs of being somewhat autocratic in the fact that not understanding what the limitations are of the first officer in this case, not really being that aware of the fatigue issues and everything and the threats that have led up to prior to getting into the aircraft, and the fact that under those conditions the captain's actually gone to sleep, to leave a first officer that's not in prime sort of position to be performing those duties is inappropriate.
Being distracted can have a significant impact on your situational awareness. A distraction like a warning light or a minor technical problem leads you to researching a quick reference handbook emergency checklist. Bottom line is fly the aeroplane. If you get distracted, you can lose control of the aircraft before you've even realised it.
We've got weather as another threat that's going to increase complexity of this particular task. We've got the relationship with the captain. So we know from the previous flight that there's already potentially some tension that if it hasn't been dealt with appropriately, pre-exists before they even get into that aircraft type. In this situation, it's fairly clear that the FO should not have been going flying that day.
You bloody idiot, you're going to get us killed!
What do you want to do?
What should have been happening there was some good CRM. The captain should have picked up that this guy's not 100% fit for flight. He may have to pick up a bit of the slack and help him out.
One of the first incidents involving Wilco, he gets distracted during his pre-flight and misses the pitot tube cover.
The guy was obviously distracted because he was running late. His mind was probably still on what he'd just been doing rather than what he was there to do. It's all about just having plenty of time up your sleeve to prepare for your flight, to have your mind in the correct frame of mind for the job that you're about to do. All of this will mean there's less chance of being distracted.
Anyone that's got secondary employment should be reporting that, and people should be looking to keep track of just how much work they are doing.
Back in town again, mate.
Yeah, mate.
Usual?
For sure.
Most charter pilots are in an environment where they'll spend overnights in country towns. Often the passengers that have been with them, they may not be aware of it, but end up in the hotel they're at or the restaurant. And they're under the spotlight whether they know it or not.
Depending on how much alcohol you've imbibed, it could be many, many hours before it's out of your system.
So you drink while you're flying?
No. It's got to have like an 8-hour turnaround between the bottle and your throttle.
Wasn't that 10 hours?
Wilco appeared to have a pretty sound plan up front with a 10-hour bottle to throttle, but after a couple of drinks that seemed to change to an 8-hour bottle to throttle rule, and after that we saw that his judgment got even worse.
Yeah.
Really, Wilco was suffering from essentially a double whammy, both the effects of alcohol, but also the effects of a reduced sleep and also reduced sleep quality.
In our environment, you've got to be professional and you've got to have a certain level of discipline.
It's the best view from here.
Bet you get all the girls up here.
Being distracted can have a significant impact on your situational awareness.
Zulu Tango uniform, 90,000.
Zulu Tango uniform, you've descended through your cleared level, re-cleared 8,000, turn left now 080, traffic avoidance.
In this example, he loses situational awareness, invites a passenger to come up the front, is distracted by that individual, and the result of that is a altitude excursion and the associated reports and a potential separation breakdown.
If you hadn't have been there chatting with the girl in the right-hand seat, he probably wouldn't have busted that altitude if he'd just been doing his job.
Passengers, 10 o'clock.
Mate, we've got to get going. All right, let's get on.
Nothing worse, the passengers turn up early, you're not ready. The best thing you can do, sorry guys, just if you could just wait in the terminal while I get the plane ready.
Stuff this up.
He should have had that had the book out, known that was going to be a bit of a short strip. The hot straight-in approach wasn't the best plan of attack. He should have been doing the circuit, had a good look at it, particularly if he's never been there before. Analyse it, bring someone else that out there that's operated into that strip before. Is there anything I've got to watch out for here? Just a bit of pre-flight preparation. Was some other damage done? Was there some cracking or bending that's going to affect that aeroplane and cause some greater amount of grief later down the line?
I want both your written responses on my desk by tomorrow morning. Get your heads together and work it out.
The problems with the Metro guys, no mechanical problem obviously, but imperative to report because through the counselling they were able to see where the shortcomings were on both sides of the cockpit. Next time hopefully that won't happen.
It quite often becomes apparent very quickly during an audit whether there is a culture within the company of reporting.
If crew feel reticent to report any incidents occurred, there is a confidential system.
Was that an incident report?
Flight from hell.
Yeah, had one yesterday myself. Weather changed and I misjudged the approach. End up bogged in the mud.
If there's ever any doubt as to whether or not you should report a situation, that should be the alarm bell to say, yes, I will report it.
It doesn't matter how small an incident or how big an incident, it needs to be reported.
Oh, what did Barry say?
I haven't told him yet.
It's not bright, mate.
Yeah, I know, but that's where I'm going now, though, so.
Reporting is about gathering intelligence, and that intelligence leads to better safety outcomes for all organisations.
Don't be afraid to report. We want to see your reports. After all, reports is information. It's good safety information that the organisation wants to learn from.
Yeah, boss, I was just coming to see you about that, actually.
Yeah, come and sit down.
So what would we hope that the Chief Pilot would talk to Wilco about? Firstly, I think remind Wilco about his responsibilities. Things like secondary employment, fatigue, managing sterile cockpits, all those sorts of issues. Because perhaps Wilco probably shouldn't have operated the aircraft back for the incident involving the landing gear. But also, the chief pilot needs to ask perhaps, where has the organisation failed work code? Are those policies clear enough? Is the organisation getting the right information, the right safety information without fear or favour? These are really the key attributes of good, safe organisations, error-tolerant organisations.